Good evening, and welcome back to Summed Up in 5 Minutes. Today's topic, human trafficking, and the harm it can have on a person. We have a first-hand account on a young female that has gone through the horrible act of being trafficked. For the viewers that don't know, human trafficking is the illegal transportation of people from one place to another, typically for the purpose of forced labor or commercial sexual exploitation. A common misconception is where it comes from. People believe that it only occurs in underdeveloped nations and use it as a means to uphold their economy. Although that is true, human trafficking also occurs more than expected, and it happens all over the place. Today, we are providing you a story of two girls that fell into the human trafficking system close to home. Here's her story.
All right, so tell your story. How did you end up being trafficked?
I was a college student struggling to pay my tuition when I met him, my trafficker, in 2005. He was a charismatic man who wooed me into a relationship, promising to help me and give me an opportunity to safely and quickly earn money by dancing for clients. Instead, he forced me into prostitution. When I tried to leave him, he punched me in the face. He kicked me and threatened to kill my family, so I stayed.
I hoped to start my own business, to support my family, and began to take up sewing. The woman I took classes from was approached by traffickers, and they used her to lure me into an offer I thought I could not refuse, a chance to work in the United States. I worked 18 hours a day, was only permitted one meal, and was forced to spend the night at the factory in a storage room. They told me if I left, my children would suffer the consequences. I spent 40 days in that factory, before I finally convinced them to allow me to go to church. I immediately called a coworker, who had given me her number after she grew concerned with my treatment at the factory. In the end, my traffickers only got 6 months of house arrest.
What would you say to other survivors of human trafficking?
It's not your fault. You are the victim. But remember, getting out is just the first step. There's a long road with good and bad days. Don't be afraid to reach out for help.
You may have been a victim once, but you can come back from the crimes committed against you. I find the best way to move forward is to push back, which is why I work with other survivors to educate people with our stories. I encourage all survivors to share their experiences and help bring an end to modern-day slavery.
What do you wish your younger self had known? What would you tell your younger self if you had the opportunity?
I wish I understood how to phrase "it's too good to be true" truly means. I wish I knew what a good relationship looked like. I wish my younger self knew that if someone truly cared about me, they wouldn't say, "If you loved me, you would do this for me." I wish that my younger self knew that in the beginning I had an option to leave, but towards the end there was none.
If I could go back in time, I would tell myself to stay with my children. When I was being held in the factory, I began to feel as though I would never see them again. I was afraid for my life and theirs, as 40 days began to feel like 40 years. I missed them terribly, and I never should have left them back in Mexico.
And we're back with Dr. Nielsen, and we're on the subject of human trafficking. And so human trafficking is the transportation of, the illegal transportation of one human being from one place to another. Now, we brushed up on where it happens, but Dr. Nielsen, can you go more into depth where it happens?
Of course. So this can happen really anywhere. This can happen anywhere from in your local town, in your local state, to nationwide. It's not really specific to one area. Yes, it's more prevalent in very low-income countries, very impoverished nations. Along with that, though, it can happen to very high tourist attractions where people don't really speak the language that well. They're forced into this labor because they cannot get out of it because they don't know how to speak or communicate with people or really ask for help in any way. There's many different tier countries that go into these. We have tiers 1 through 3. Tier 1 being the safest countries, or, well, not the safest countries, but the countries that take the most action against this, because no country is safe from trafficking.
Yes.
Tier 2s are the countries that really are making an effort, but really cannot find a way to really start shutting down or really start working towards progress. And Tier 3s are countries that have no effort towards this, and they're really the ones that you should watch out for.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know that America is actually a Tier 1 country. However, we've heard numerous stories on human trafficking happening all over the place in America. Can you actually brush up on the types of trafficking that it can occur?
Of course. So there's a lot of different trafficking that can occur across all nations. A lot of them are doing with domestic work, whether that be forced to work inside of a house for no pay, forced to work in mines as a child, or forced to work in mines with no pay at all as an adult. Either of those can be classified as human trafficking. On top of that, there's sexual exploitation that happens a lot with human trafficking. There's a lot of money to be made in the industry, and that's what really keeps it all thriving, the money. Money keeps this business afloat, and without the money, it really would not be what it is today. So human trafficking isn't just the factor of not being paid, it's not being paid enough or being forced to work for money that you don't actually need.
Yeah, I heard you brush on the sexual exploitations. With that, like, who are the victims and who are the most at risk? Because I know there's a big prostitution thing happening with specifically women and children. Care to touch on that?
Of course. So sexual exploitation is a horrific act of human trafficking that happens a lot in America, our own country. 99% of the victims are females. Very low percentage of them are children, but there's still children involved in the trade. These women can be sold online on websites that you can go onto just through the regular Google. You can Google search these websites and get to them, and you can buy a woman for however long you want to buy one for. And that's really something that we cannot stand for. We need to start taking action against that. People might be mistaken this is prostitution, but it's not. People are being sold by other people and held in forced labor, and we need to recognize this, and we need to take action against it.
That is a good point. But we also must acknowledge that men are also taken in this thing. We cannot brush that aside. What are they used for generally?
So men, a lot of the times, are used in human trafficking as forced labor. Men are used often to work in domestic work, whether it be in factories, whether that be mining or some sort of labor. And a lot of this happens in nations in Africa. DRC is very prevalent in this issue. They have a lot of mines there that have forced labor in them, whether it be with adults or children, as both of them, you can use either of them, along with them working to make clothes, weave strings, or really any sort of labor that'll get people money and people will buy things for.
And it's as terrible as that to say, what human rights are being violated? Because it doesn't seem like they have much.
Okay, so the human rights being violated as the Article 3, rights to life. These people are not being given the rights to life. These people are being forced to work, and they don't have the freedom to choose what they want to do in their lives. Article 4 is a clear one, no slavery. The entire human trafficking business is slavery. There is no arguing against that. Article 5, no torture. These people are being tortured in many ways, both physically if they don't do their jobs right or they don't do what they want, or mentally by being psychologically abused by their captors, telling them that they are always going to be in a situation and will never really be able to make it out.
It's very good points made, but is there any methods to combat this? Because it seems like a really terrible act, and we want to get as many people out of it and stop circulating the system and getting people in it.
Of course. So one of the big things that we do in America that I think other countries should really start working on, especially those tier 2 countries that want to make it to tier 1 to show that they're really trying and they can really get more support that way, is America has the TVPA. Not even just looking at cases of human trafficking. They go into these areas and they really try and focus on making sure there's no human trafficking happening. The problem with that is that they don't have enough support and they're not prevalent enough. People don't know what they do, and also they don't know that they are a hotline that they can reach. People really need to get to them and really need to work on it. On top of that, I believe the UN is a very big player in this. Of course, a lot of people that are being humanly trafficked are going from country to country. The UN needs to crack down on these people and really start putting in more resolutions and enact more orders that would really start combating human trafficking, because it is possible. We've seen many countries improve in this region, and we hope to see improvements to keep going.
All right, thank you, Dr. Niesland. I think that's all the time we have left. For the viewers that are watching, you need to educate yourself on human trafficking. That is the main issue in a lot of the cases. That's about it. Hope you join us next week.